Good evening and welcome to the LaRouche Movement's weekly battle report. Today is Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. I'm Michelle Aaron, your host. In a statement published last week by independent presidential candidate Diane Sare, the challenge was put forward to make crazy again. We are in a world that is accelerating towards collapse, a world gifted with the potential for peace, for scientific breakthroughs, for collaboration and performance and enjoyment of great classical art, but where instead, and especially with the recent months' accelerating breakdown of the Trump administration, we collectively choose to hurtle toward war, economic and financial collapse, and moral ruin. There may be now a backdown of the fascist Operation Metro surge in Minnesota, United States, after this week's horrifying killing and defamation of a nurse, someone who cared for veterans, and someone who was a member of the American Federation of Government Employees, 37-year-old Alex Pretty. Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino has already been removed from his post there. But will this solve what was supposed to have begun as an immigration crisis? And what will resolve the danger of a threatened U.S. attack on Iran? An end to ethnic cleansing in Gaza? And the driver of it all, the bankruptcy of the transatlantic monetary and financial system, with its $2.4 quadrillion of derivatives obligations. As identified by Sare in her statement, acknowledge the realities of the situation, the wars, the genocide, the homelessness, the barbarism. Stop defending the insanity. Let it go. Adopt instead a presidential approach. What a real American president would do. For example, let go of our bankrupt financial system and allow it to be reorganized for the good. This statement is available, published by the Sare for President campaign. We encourage you to read it in full. Our battle report tonight takes up several examples of the LaRouche movement internationally taking up the approach indicated by Sare. Let go of the crazy and start to do the good. Think like a president. Tonight we will see Jose Vega demonstrate his leadership in the wake of a major attack on his campaign and his efforts. We'll get a briefing from Daniel Burke on the building of an international youth movement. We will see excerpts from an interview published by EIR with a Mexican farm leader, and see 3 examples of on-the-ground organizing from France, Mexico, and Texas. So to Jose Vega. Jose Vega running in New York's 15th Congressional District against Richie Torres, a sitting congressman who has received more than $1.5 million from AIPAC, while doing nothing for his district in the Bronx, which is the poorest congressional district in the country. This last week, Torres came out and attacked Jose directly. He accused Jose of a strategy of defamation and disinformation. Here's what Jose put out in response, posted on Jose's social media accounts, a statement that refuses to back down and also makes the point that what's really at stake is development.
My name is Jose Vega and I'm running for Congress in the 15th Congressional District in the Bronx. Just yesterday, my opponent, Richie Torres, did not have the guts to use my name when he attacked me. Richie Torres knows that I regard his policy towards Gaza and to the 70% of the poor people in this district as one and the same. I call it malign neglect. where innocent people are called collateral damage rather than by their rightful names. And just like Gaza needs an oasis plan with young Palestinians in the center, reconstructing Gaza and all of Southwest Asia, the Bronx needs one too. And I call it the Space Civilian Construction Corps, where young people of the Bronx will be given access and tools to some of the best engineering education anywhere in the country to rebuild the Bronx and other cities and other parts of this country to make them industrial heartlands again. This makes Richie look so bad. What does he do? Last night, he puts out an attack on me, calling me what? An anti-Semite? This is not surprising at all, given that another opponent, Amanda Septimo, actually just dropped out of the race, making it harder for Richie Torres to hide his ugly face from his constituents. Let me repeat what I've said over time and time again. My congressional district is the poorest congressional district in the entire country. We have the highest child poverty rate in anywhere in the United States. And yet, in my district, one of the richest neighborhoods in all of the United States is located in the Bronx, also known as Riverdale. No one ever associates Riverdale with the Bronx, and neither does Richie Torres. For him, the money you have determines your speaking rights and your right to be heard by him. And as far as he's concerned, the poor majority have nothing to say. I don't agree. I believe that promoting the general welfare is a constitutional duty, just like the preamble says, and Richie Torres is in deep violation of that. While Richie Torres and his owners in the war party keep the Bronx poor, it is because I have denounced mass murder in Gaza, because I denounce war with Iran, the kidnapping of sovereign leaders in Venezuela, or NATO's war in Ukraine, that I am now being labeled an anti-Semite. Yelling anti-Semitic is intended to shut me up. But the military financial complex will not shut me down. Now the question is, what are you prepared to do? Do you want a congressman with guts or a congressman with issues? It should be obvious that whether it's Gaza to Minnesota, we need a new security and development architecture. We need a new deal for the Bronx. But who's going to stand up for that? I'm asking you to stand with me. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And now's the time, and I'm the person to back.
There you have it, Jose Vega. Now a report on the building of an international youth movement. Last Saturday, the Schiller Institute held the first of a new monthly class series with participants this past Saturday from more than 70 countries. Young people were on this call from nations such as Nigeria, Yemen, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Uganda, Kenya, Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, and the United States to learn of the ideas of Lyndon LaRouche, Gottfried Leibniz, and Friedrich Schiller. The first class in the series was given by Helga Zepp LaRouche, and while the full discussion is not going to be published, the presentation Helga gave at the outset is available. We include a link, you can watch it in the video description. To get a flavor of this youth process, we'll watch the first 2 minutes of the invite video that was filmed, a statement by Daniel Burke, and that was circulated last week in the run-up to the class.
Hello, I'm Daniel Burke with the Schiller Institute, and I'm making this video to invite you to a very important new class series that we're organizing in order to build an international youth movement for a new and just world order. This class series will begin on Saturday, January 24th, so just 2 days from when I'm making this video, and it will be simultaneously translated into French, Spanish, and German, and we hope to make it available in other languages shortly thereafter. The first class will be given by Schiller Institute founder Helga Zepp LaRouche. We'll be discussing the coincidence of opposites, the idea of how the one is superior to the many, and the present strategic situation with all of its immense dangers and unprecedented problems of end of international law and the return of the rule of the jungle. It's up to us as people who will, carry out this coming century that we intervene now and we bring forward necessary ideas that would create the potential for justice in this world, for a world in which all nations are able to practice the sovereign right of economic development, and that we use development as a method of peace. There are great potentials for this, but it certainly won't happen by accident. It requires leadership, especially from young people. This class series will meet monthly, and it happens at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. In Mexico, that's 10 a.m. In France, Germany, or Nigeria, that would be 5 p.m. And in East African countries, that would be 7 p.m. And you can find out other locations what time this will be. It won't just be a class with a lecture. There will be a discussion of joint initiatives that we can take.
Now we have a very important item from EIR, Executive Intelligence Review, the 50-plus year intelligence journal and network of the LaRouche movement. This interview was conducted on January 20th by Dennis Small, Ibero-America Desk, with Alberto Vizcarra, who is a leader of the National Front to Save the Mexican Countryside. The LaRouche movement has long worked with farmers in many nations and played a key role in helping develop solutions for the problems facing farmers and connecting farmers from different nations. In this interview, Small and Vizcarra discussed that the Mexican agriculture sector has been decimated for decades by free trade policies, including the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which deregulation, free trade policies, has allowed the multinational grain cartels to dump cheap products on the Mexican market, destroying the country's food self-sufficiency. Mexico used to be fully food sufficient with grains and now relies for 50% imports. This reduced food production and consumption in the country and is driving millions of Mexicans to head to the United States. They are economic refugees. We call it here immigration crisis. So Vizcarra reported on the demand by his organization that all basic grains be removed from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, where they are currently traded at the whims of speculators for the benefit of cartels, and that Mexico instead return to a policy of developing national food self-sufficiency to meet the population's needs. So I highly recommend watching the full interview discussion. We include a link in the video description. Here's an excerpt.
And in the situation in Mexico, we'll be speaking today with some leaders of the farm movement in Mexico who have taken upon themselves to not only organize protests and propose policies in Mexico, but also to enter into discussions and contact with fellow farm producers in Chile, in South America, and also in the United States. In fact, in an important meeting that they held in Mexico on October 10th, a message was read to the Mexican farmers group by 18 farm leaders in the United States. And we'll be hearing a whole lot more about that today in our discussion with Alberto Vizcarra. He is a Mexican. He is a leader of a Mexican farm workers union. It's called the Frente Nacional para el Rescate del Campo Mexicano, which roughly translated is the National Front for Saving the Mexican Countryside. And one of their very important points, and we will be getting to this in our discussion with Alberto, is they are demanding that the entire grain sector of the Mexican economy not be priced according to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange because it's speculative, but that it be priced according to national needs of the country. So these are some of the things we will be talking about with Alberto today, including a very important meeting that he and colleagues had over a 2-day period, 4 hours, with none other than the Agriculture Minister of Mexico, Verdeguer. So let's get right into it. Alberto Vizcarra, he is a longtime organizer and leader in the farm movement in Mexico, and also a longtime friend of the Schiller Institute and a collaborator with Lyndon LaRouche in much of his organizing activity between the two countries. So with that introduction, Alberto, let me ask you just directly, please describe what the farm crisis is in Mexico today, the food crisis, and what is the series of demands that the Frente is making today.
Well, thank you, Dennis, for the invitation to participate in this talk. And I think the context you opened this talk with, this interview, situates things very well in relation to the fact that just like European producers, or in other words, agricultural producers in the United States, Mexico is facing, perhaps with greater depth, the serious problem that has been represented by the fact that basic grains, particularly wheat, corn, beans, and sorghum, have been included in a trade scheme that, since the mid-1990s, was designed precisely not to strengthen the national food market, but to implement mechanisms that would lead the country to a deepening of its food dependency. That's exactly the situation we're in. As is known, Mexico is importing more than 50% of its basic grains and corn, a food dependency that has been accumulating for the last 30 years. It is a critical situation because the government, starting in 2018, even decided to withdraw the compensatory support that was contemplated for contract farming. Now, the National Front for the Rescue of the Mexican Countryside is calling for a return to the concept of national agriculture, a return to the systems that gave the country self-sufficiency from 1934 to 1982. This effectively demands, as you mentioned earlier, that Mexico's basic grains and oil seeds be removed from this trade scheme, that Mexico establish a universal policy of guaranteed prices that sets the corresponding tariffs to protect national production, and that an agricultural policy be based not on contract farming, but on agriculture with national production goals to reduce food dependency. Again, strongly recommended to watch the full interview. We now have 3 on-the-ground organizing reports. We're going to start with, we have some pictures from Mexico last Tuesday, where members of the Schiller Institute gathered at the Hemiciclo a Juarez to engage in an urgent and necessary dialogue with the public about the challenges that define our time. You'll see in the pictures that themes of the discussion included say no to thermonuclear weapons, yes to progress, some wonderful banners on the question of nuclear energy for humanity and some of the scientific principles involved, like LaRouche's energy flux density, that you do this for the common good. We must eradicate energy poverty. They discussed with people driving industrial and scientific development, and that a global security architecture with the BRICS is the direction that we've got to head in. We also have from France a series of beautiful pictures from last Saturday. I think they're all from last Saturday, but 2 different locations in Albertville and Pantin, France. People can email in your corrections to my pronunciation of those cities. This was under the banner of the campaign of Sébastien Peramoni, running as a candidate with Solidarité et Progrès. And I can tell you that the lead sign translates to "Let's free France and the world from financial and colonial oligarchy." So you saw in those photos just tons of people stopping to talk and see what our candidate and our activists had to say, probably taking literature and subscribing as well. One more organizing report, and something you may consider finding opportunities to do this sort of thing. There are plenty of opportunities at city council meetings and various forums that meet once in a while or regularly, where there may be a public comment section so that you can share your thoughts. And Joe Jennings did this last night in Houston, Texas. He took the opportunity of the public comments section at the Houston Port Authority to update the commission on several points. He explained the context of the recent U.S. attack on Venezuela and that the alternative to this is the BRICS. He also informed the commission about EIR News Service and about the campaign of Diane Sare for president.
Good morning, everyone. I am Joe Jennings with LaRouche, with the Schiller Institute, with EIR.news. On Sunday, January 4th, the day after U.S. commanders raided the presidential mansion down there in Caracas, Venezuela, and abducted President Maduro and his wife to come back to New York to stand trial, Secretary of State Marco Rubio gave the game away on Meet the Press in an interview with Kristen Welker. Is this about drugs? Is this about oil? This is what the Secretary of State said. We don't need their oil. Why does China need their oil? We're not going to let the Western Hemisphere become a base of operations for adversaries, for competitors of the United States. And so little Marco is going to wield Teddy Roosevelt's big stick against Venezuela, Peru, Dominican Republic, Haiti, and the big prize is Brazil, because Brazil is the B in BRICS, a new alliance of nations that's coming together to finance development. My movement, the Schiller Institute, we have been nourishing this BRICS process for years and years as a very American conception, okay? So keep an eye on the BRICS, keep an eye on EIR.news, and keep an eye on Diane Sare, my associate, who was just declared for president of the United States, to be the herald of these kind of solutions, because they're not coming from Team Trump or the Democratic opposition, and certainly not from Mark Carney, the superstar of Davos last week, who wants to digitalize the whole world currency at the point of a financial crash.
We saw tonight many examples of the LaRouche movement demonstrating presidential leadership. We saw it in the keen insight of Diane Sare, independent candidate for president of the United States, in her leaflet, her statement, "Make Crazy Crazy Again." We saw it in Jose Vega's mature and solution-oriented response to the mudslinging of his worse than useless opponent. We saw it in the dialogue with a leading Mexican farmer. And we saw it in the on-the-ground organizing reports in Mexico, France, and Texas. So send in your organizing reports between now and next week. You have a few days to figure out what you're going to go do in order to have an organizing report. Send them into info@laroucheorganization.com. As demanded by Diane Sare, candidate for U.S. President, make crazy crazy again. Stop being crazy and do the good. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next